Welcome everyone to Overcome Podcast. This is episode 30, and a lot of things we're talking to you now. So to celebrate episode 30, I have here my friend Alan Shebaro. Thanks a lot for being here, Alan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Alan. I'm gonna start this conversation talking about the main theme of this podcast is about overcome. When I met you at Eastside Dojo, one of the things that we talked about was your last injury, and I'm not sure if it was neck or shoulder or both. But how was the post surgery rehab process? You own a BJJ academy, so it must be really hard for you to not be able to train. How did you deal with that?
So actually, it was both. um, so I had surgery on my shoulder in June of 2019. Initially went in for just a clavicle shaving. Basically, the had been creating spurs from the calcium buildup from previous injuries, and I'm very glad that I signed that the waiver that if they found anything else wrong, to go ahead and take care of it, because they ended up being like almost like 10 or 11 things wrong. So I had like a partially torn pec. My bicep was torn, labrum, clavicle, rotator cuff. I mean, there was a whole bunch of things wrong, and ended up getting a bunch of hardware in there as well. The uh, the shoulder injury recovery after surgery was wow. Well, I had surgery on my neck in September.
Mm-hmm.
That was for C5, C6, and C7 damage. And I was actually done with my rehab for my neck before I was done with my rehab for my shoulder. So it was drastically longer, and it just took so long to kind of recover from that. My neck recovery was much faster.
How long total you were out?
Um, so I was off the mats training for about 7 months. And then I kind of slowly started getting there. I was like really skeptical of the durability of my shoulder. I mean, it was the first surgery I ever had, so I wasn't, I didn't know what to expect. And yeah, so little by little, it just kind of got more comfortable with, the movement, the unorthodox
Mm-hmm.
movement that jiu-jitsu has to offer. And I was actually more comfortable with judo just because I wasn't doing any of the randori, but I was doing the uchikomi. And so that really was, it was very controlled, especially when you got a good uke, of
Yeah.
course. Jiu-jitsu is um, a little bit, well, it's as a sport itself, it's definitely more low impact, but training wise, it's still unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to have a controlled partner as well, good uke, even if you're just drilling some things.
Do
Um,
you still have the hardware?
Say again.
Do you still have the hardware on your shoulder, or did you remove?
No, it's permanent.
It's permanent.
So yeah, I got screws in there, so it's going to be there for a while.
And
Uh,
did you feel any change as far as range of motion or anything like that, or you feel like today it's like better than before?
yeah, the range of motion is still something that my mobility is just horrible still. That's one of the things I focus on the most. It just it's been a while trying to get it to go. I mean, coming from an Olympic lifting background, I was doing like clean and jerks, and that was part of my general, programming. Even off season, doesn't matter if it was judo, jiu-jitsu, what I was training for, I was still be incorporating Olympic movements. You have the explosiveness and the high weight, and if you incorporate that and you program it properly, then it makes for a phenomenal program that can definitely benefit jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
I think it's probably the closest thing.
So the
But
the mobility is something that you're still working on. You feel like it's
still,
coming back, or
yeah,
it's just slow?
it's just creeping slow. It's probably spend more time on mobility now than I ever have, probably twice as much. And it just, and I want to be careful about it. The last thing I want to do is get another surgery. So it's taken much longer, but I mean, starting out from, I was doing like incline presses with a 12-ounce can, and I still have it logged in my book that I actually couldn't finish the last set. And we're talking about 12 ounces. So, and that build up and build up. So I'm definitely not where I was before, but I'm leaps and bounds past 12-ounce cans. So I'm
And we are
happy.
talking about how many months post surgery now? Like more than a year, right? Like,
Yeah. So we're going on about 19 months.
wow,
Yeah.
it's really long. It's really long.
Yeah.
But do you feel any pain?
No, not so much. I mean, that was actually the biggest test is, going into judo. And I think when you try to avoid getting thrown on your back and you try to reverse quickly, when I did one of those and I didn't feel any impingement, that was a really huge sense of security. And I could actually feel a lot more comfortable training from that point on. That was huge because you open up and you flail out,
Mm-hmm.
with an explosive. When you have someone on top, usually that puts more pressure down.
Yeah.
So the worst situations, I think that's probably one of them. And, it felt fine after that. So, and I haven't had issues since. So the mobility is definitely working out. It's just not as quick as I'd like it to be.
Yeah, and based on what you said, his injury was not a particular event that caused it. Was more like over time, right?
Yeah, it was so several different things. So the first time was actually I was deployed to Iraq, and it was 2007, and we're headed to we're on mission, headed out, and on the way out there was IED that went off in between the vehicles, but it was not didn't hit the vehicles. It was in between. We veered off, and I was in the top in a turn. I braced with my right arm, for the impact because the vehicle was actually going in a ditch, and so you can think in 40 miles an hour, and then dead stop,
Mm-hmm.
and I braced with my arm, and it just jolted really bad back. Um, so that was the first time that it got hurt. I remember, but it was strange because a few days later it was fine. I really didn't feel it kick in until um, about 6 years ago when I was still 7 years ago when I was big into Olympic lifting, and I did I was trying to do a personal record max, and just jerked it up, and for some reason it was just a bad angle, or I was leaning one side too much. I'm not quite sure, but I felt it jar back down again, almost the same way. Like there was no support.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped the weight, and then that was the other thing. And then even more so than into judo a couple of times, smaller ones, but as they stack up, that's where the damage was coming in. So I went from having full range of motion to like, okay, 3/4 range of motion. Well, that's fine. I can still train. It's a halfway. I'm like, if I just modify this, I can still train. And down to here, I'm like, well, I can't even lift up the, my bed sheets anymore, but I can still train if I just tuck this side in until it was point where like, I can't do anything.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm assuming that every time was getting worse, not only the range of motion, but also the pain, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was getting more that would probably like increase the frustration just because you want to do it and you can't do it, and the more you try to do it, the more your body tells you not to do it, and so
Yeah.
a lot of inner conflict.
So, you already said that the comeback to train after the injury, you were a bit skeptical. When you came back, did you start first lifting weight, or you just went back straight to BJJ or judo?
No, I think um, it was a combination of judo and weightlifting. Saying that having a controlled partner where I could do good smooth pulls, um, and kind of regulate it was really, really, really a huge motivator. Kind of, okay, I'm back on the mats now. But it was always supplemented with the weightlifting and a lot of band and mobility work. Um,
And then later on, you went back to BJJ.
yes, yeah. So I was teaching for a while, and that's kind of a little bit, I was, reintegrating myself back in by teaching first,
Mm-hmm.
and not playing around on the mats at all. But that way, I have someone that's understands that they're cooperative as I'm teaching. So I have a few really good demonstrators and that. So it's a lot more controlled.
So would you say that for you to be fully back on Judo and BJJ, you're talking about probably 10 months?
How long it took?
Yeah, because
It took
you
about,
said that you went back to train after 7 months, but you didn't.
yeah,
It was not randori or anything, so probably it took 2 more months for you to feel comfortable and start doing it.
yeah. It took about actually about 4 more months.
Oh.
Yeah, it took a while for me to kind of get comfortable with that, and especially, well, it took me about 3 months for getting back to training, and then as soon as I felt good training, I mean, the logical step is to compete, right?
Hmm.
So, so I had to go compete.
Yeah, and I was actually looking at some of the numbers here, and looks like your last IBJJF tournament was in 2017, but this year you already fought and won the fight to win 164. Do you have any plans to go back to IBJJF tournaments, or you focus on judo now?
So, yes. um, my goal was that I set out about 8 years ago was to medal in a high level tournament in two different sports in 1 year. I initially tried to do that with um, Olympic lifting and jiu-jitsu. And the closest that I came was silver medal at Pan Am's and then silver medal at American Masters Nationals for weightlifting. So I never really achieved it. So the goal this year is judo and jiu-jitsu. So Reno is hosting the senior nationals. So goal is to try to medal or win on that one, and then the Masters Worlds. That's going to be usually is held in Vegas, but they've been changing around due to COVID
Yeah,
lately.
yeah. Last year was actually in Florida, Orlando. Yeah, but
That's right.
I think this year will be back to Vegas. Looks like from what I heard. So did you avoid when on this rehab all the way back? Did you avoid some specific movements in the beginning that you felt you were using a lot of shoulders and you were not comfortable? Did you adjust your game, build a new game, or you went back to do what you like to do?
No, it was definitely it turned out to be a permanent change, not in a bad way, but my right side was always my dominant side, and I had to make modifications because it wasn't that anymore. So now I have an unorthodox passing system game. To the it's not very common passing to the right. It's much more common when you pass to the left. But that's how we developed a lot of that strategy to be able to pass to the right. And I'm still comfortable passing to the left. So the only thing it did was actually increase.
But
Now
in judo you're not lefty, are you?
I am.
Oh, but okay,
I am
interesting.
now. Yes. I started about a year ago. Switched to lefty. So I was righty for years, and I couldn't use that. I mean, it just kind of freaked me out. If I imagine someone like yanking on your shoulder, trying to get rid of grips or something happened. So that just kept running in my head. So I just switched left side and started developing my game left side.
That must be tough to change completely your stance and everything.
It actually, to be honest with you, it didn't feel too bad. So I'm left leg forward for wrestling. So it kind of fell back into that.
Mm.
So my first type of stand up was wrestling. I never wrestled in like officially like in school or for like wrestling competitions. I only trained wrestling with Yusuf just to better my jiu-jitsu. But I did that for years, and I mean, left leg forward, was most comfortable for
So the
me.
only thing that you
So
had to adjust was your left grip, which was not your dominant one.
yeah, left grips and relearning, the high pull kazushi. That was the other thing, because that's still a lot in the right shoulder.
Hmm.
So that did take a lot more.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Um, you train a broad spectrum of operators during deployments to Iraq in support to the Operation Iraq Freedom. That includes U.S. Army, Special Force, Army Rangers, U.S. Navy, Marine. So while you were training then, I believe it was more towards self-defense, things like that, specific scenarios. Uh, when you think about those people that you train, what's really some of the attributes of those guys that you carry on to the mat? Not only from the mindset perspective, but the approach to things. There is anything in particular that you bring it back to the mat when you are, for example, training or preparing to a fight?
Um, the mindset. Um, I mean, for one of the most common things that you hear as an operator, especially when you're like a assaulter and that type of door kickers, unit. Whenever you're doing that, is speed, surprise, and balance of action. Um, so the speed of the movement of the cell, being able to enter the room, flood it, and cover all the corners. Um, yeah, the surprise element, of it is, basically the strategy. You always have your one up already, and balance of action is, hit hard and, don't leave any misunderstanding, for what you're doing, basically. I definitely carry that same mentality into jiu-jitsu. Um, it establish your grips, get to takedown, be first, get out there, get on top. I been a huge advocate against, pulling guard. I understand, the rationale behind it, for sport, getting back to, again, just sport. But I still like to maintain the self-defense aspect of it while training and competing in sport.
Mm-hmm.
You can still get 2 points for takedowns
Mm-hmm.
in any jiu-jitsu competition, and they're starting to actually award more points now. Like, for example, Jiu-Jitsu World League is offering 4 points for a high over the hip throw. So, but there's no points for pulling guards. So there's really no downside in training takedowns, except yet, the instructor has to be humble enough to learn something that he's probably not good at. And everyone has to go through that. To learn to be proficient enough to teach, you have to be able to, learn it and learn it proficiently enough to teach it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting attribute because mainly for judo, because you actually can get a penalty shido if you don't attack. So you got to be very offensive.
Yeah. So surprising with, the, whatever technique that you're doing, and, the balance of action, it doesn't necessarily have to, narrow to one thing. But in jiu-jitsu, it's the same thing. Make sure that you're passing, with a purpose. Same thing in judo. You're trying to get that ippon. So, if you're stuck in that half osotogari, whoever's going to be, more violent in their action, more driven, more willed, is going to, take the win out of that. And that happens quite often.
Yeah, and actually on your last fight, on Fight to Win, it was interesting because you had like at least 4 or 3 takedowns on the guy I was watching, and but it almost felt to me that's and sorry if I'm wrong, but it almost felt to me that this is all you wanted to do because the guy was standing up and you were almost like allowing him to stand up. Was that a strategy or something?
So, what I've been really focused on this year was judo nationals, and so the opponent that I had confirmed that I was getting ready for, had to cancel the night before, So this guy took up his fight, but I'd been getting ready for a judo match. And so I was like, okay, this happened to me before, my last one as well. The person I was supposed to fight didn't show up, and had to change opponents. But now I don't have much time to train for a specific opponent. So
So it was a
the
strategy.
yeah, so the first time it was still I took him down, and he wanted to stand back up. I was like, well, oh, okay, let's do that. Sure, no problem. So we wanted to go stand up again. So the first one was kind of sloppy. It was like a lazy Sasai. The second one was a pseudo Ken Osoto. The third one was the one that I really liked, was Ashiguruma.
Yeah, it was good, that one, because you actually established control, went to north-south.
Oh, that was the Sasai.
Oh, yeah, but it was like inverted, right?
Yeah, it was a Sasai. Yeah, it was. It was. That's what I mean. For some reason, it was. If you actually look at the comment section, it was Flow Grappling says, "Can judokas? Can you name this throw?"
Mm-hmm.
And you have 24 different answers, everything from Yoko Tomonagi to and there's some small attributes to each one of them, so like could be that. And to be honest with you, it was just something that I saw an opportunity to take both his feet out, so that very similar to Diashi. And I had the elbow, and I anchored down the other side, so that's very similar to Sasai,
Right.
but landed on my side, so that was like a similar like Tomonagi,
Right.
Yoko Tomonagi sideways. So there was a lot of different ways to describe it, but it was interesting to see that.
But it is valid to say that in any moment of that fight, you were not really looking to submission, right? I mean, it was very clear that you were not really looking to.
No. There was, when there was 30. So Mike was supposed to be calling out time, and I didn't hear him at all. The only time I heard him was 30 seconds. So that last one was the one that was the Sasai one. And, I was trying to get on top and trying to get submission. I was like, oh shit, 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to do all takedowns until I had a minute left. But I didn't hear a minute. So it was just 30 seconds on that. But I love the stand up. I really do. And, that's what he wanted to do. So I was totally for that.
No, that's very cool. I watched that and I was like, wow, that's interesting strategy. Looks like he's just practicing judo here. And with all the experience that you have competing, being deployed, do you still get a little bit nervous before a fight, or it's like business as usual?
I mean, there's always. I think that's the reason why I kind of like doing it, is that little bit of adrenaline pump that goes. But after started competing in jiu-jitsu, 98. So, and I've been competing like on stage for about 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I was rattled by it. It was really unique, and it was a whole nother experience. After that, it just became the norm, and I was totally fine with it. But no, there's always that a little bit of nervousness that I want to do my game,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm worried about what I'm going to be doing more than what's going to be happening. You just want you want to perform well. So
was this also the same type of mentality that you had when you came back after the surgery on your first tournament, or when you came back you were a little bit more afraid to re-injury?
To be honest with you, once I actually got on stage, I really wasn't even thinking about it. I think it was. I think the training and those milestones, I guess, kind of like reversing out of a throw. Those little milestones were key to my comfort level by the time I got on stage. It just really didn't feel like, there was anything to worry about anymore, because I already been through the scenarios that were going to be the worst thing for it. So by the time I got there, um, I consciously did even, wasn't even thinking about it.
Interesting. You started training Olympic weightlifting in 2012, and then 4 months later you were already competing, and then 1 year later you were already setting records, clean jerk on the USAW Texas State Championship on the Master Division. When you were prepping for weightlifting, did you stay practicing judo and BJJ, or you were 100% focused on weightlifting? Because there's a lot of debate about training like three sports at the same time. You end up not being really good at one. So did you slow down on BJJ and judo to focus on weightlifting, or not really?
Um, and you're right about that. This was before I didn't start judo until 2016. Um, and that was after I was at the finals match for the Pan Ams, and with his grips, he was literally able to shut my entire takedown game down. So he just shut it down with grips, and it was crazy. And after that, I vowed that wasn't going to happen again. But so I started lifting. Let's see, 20, holy shit, dude, that was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
2012. Yeah, April 2012.
Yeah. Um, so let's see, 2012, and then so I was only doing weightlifting and jiu-jitsu at the time. Now, you're absolutely right in the fact that that year that was the closest that I got was silver, and I always kind of think back, wondering if I had not. So I was trying to shift best I could, but Olympic weightlifting, there's you're doing 1,000 lifts to get one right, but you're doing those in small increments, 3, 4 at a time, working on form and precision of that lift to duplicate it. And so when you're competing just for Olympic lifting, it's not very conducive to jiu-jitsu, because you need a lot more of that explosiveness, and then followed by an anaerobic peak, followed right behind it, and then a drop, and then a peak again, so it's very consistent. The workouts usually last about 2.5 hours, just because you need to rest in between them, which doesn't really duplicate the what you need to have on the mats.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would have had that, I honestly think that I would have won one or the other, because I came in really close on both. I just was missing that little bit, and it was on me 100%, of course, but I felt like that was my way of doing it. That was my way of being able to compete in both, is something similar to that would benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're two entirely different sports.
Yeah, because I would imagine that for weightlifting, mainly on that level, you need more rest. But you never had rest because you were rolling, and that's a lot of cardio. So your recovery was not really 100%. It's really tough to do both.
Yeah.
Now,
you're right.
BJJ and judo is a little bit more similar.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I think having this goal this year is
it's more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now with I'm 46, and I always say that it's beautiful when people say that age is just a number, and I used to say that a lot, but I've been noticing that it's not really just a number. It takes more time to recover. You get way more beat up after hard training. How do you deal with that? Do you take days off, or do you train every day?
So I definitely had to get away from 3-a-days. So whether it be like jiu-jitsu, I used to do jiu-jitsu, judo, weightlifting, hell, sometimes I'd even do two jujitsu, in one day, so four sometimes, And what I realized is that I'd have a good day on that, and everything else subsequently after was going to be just garbage, just because I wasn't recovering. So I felt that if I got two solid workouts in a day, my recovery was better, and my performance and longevity of that performance was better in the long run. So I just started sticking to two a days, and I just, have to resist the urge to jump on the mats, so and it's difficult to do when you're around it all the time. If you're not around it, it's one thing, but you're literally like on the mats in a gi, ready to go,
Hmm.
and then people are asking you like, "Hey, you want to roll?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do, but
So,
in
so
the
so nowadays you do what? 2 days in a week of jiu-jitsu in a week, and then 2 days of judo, and then lifting every day. How is your regiment today?
So usually be I'll lift in the morning. I try to lift about 4 or 5 days a week, and I try to get a minimum of three. So the average is four. And then doing judo 3 times a week, and then jujitsu 4 times a week.
Oh, that's a
So,
lot. Yeah.
but again, always like no more than two a day. So as long as it's spread out, then I'm good to go.
But when you say that you do jiu-jitsu 4 days a week, are you talking about four full training of rolling and multiple rounds and all that?
Sometimes, yeah. Um, and again, it's also depends. I've learned to listen to my body. So there'll be some days, where I'm, lift. I just have like one workout, and but throughout work, and then whatever stresses come up, and then teach again, and just okay, I'm just burnt out. So I'm still listen to that. That's a big one of the biggest changes that I had. It's just listening to my body. If I feel like shit, don't try to push through it, because it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah.
So that was a big catalyst in my understanding of recovery.
Yeah, the good thing about going through all this is that you learn a lot about how your body responds and how to actually listen and say better to step away a little bit, better to not train today because I had a good lift and now I feel a little bit sore. Um, that's a good point. Now, when I interview in this podcast Jimmy Pedro, and we were talking about some attributes of the people that he coached in the past, like Ronda Rousey, Trev Stevens, and others. Jim emphasized a lot about the mindset attribute to be a champion. And in your opinion, what is really the biggest attributes that you consider for an individual to succeed in the sport of BJJ or Judo? Is it really the mindset? Is it discipline, talent, hard work, all together in something more?
I mean, I think the mindset would be the umbrella for the discipline and the motivation. Um, I think, especially as we get older, the motivation is definitely a key thing to keep, and to hold on to. That's a difficult one, especially when you have, again, multiple things, family and work, and these are still realities that you have to deal with. So it's hmm. Well, I mean, it also depends on the support system as well, of course.
Hmm.
So if you have a good support system, then you can do a lot more. But I think that's one of the monumental differences that from when you're young into when you're older is life's responsibilities, but the mindset of it still remains the same. You still have that drive, that motivation, and that one of the biggest things was just never quitting. That makes for the most dangerous opponent you can ever have is the one that just gets up and just comes back at you. So having that never quit mentality is definitely one of the key components to what I have. Is just I've been through worse. I can make it through this,
Hmm.
and that's what kind of gets me going. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
think,
can imagine that. For example, during the 7 months post surgery that you had a lot of time to reflect about that, and you were in this mix of hungry to get back, but also having to hold on because you could do anything. How was your mindset at that time? Were you pissed? Were you very patient, or how was?
the most frequent was frustrated.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, the hard part was, I was going. I would be doing. I have a 385. Excuse me, a 385 pound clean. And now I'm struggling with 95 pounds. So knowing that you had the ability to do certain things, like I was just getting under, and I never maxed out on bench, but the last time I was under, bench before I had surgery and I was actually, consistently lifting was, 365 for three. But it wasn't like in my, you know, in the list of things that I was doing because it was mainly like Olympic programming. Um, so um, it was frustrating because I knew I was capable of more and I knew what that felt like. And now this feels, very similar to the heavy weight, that I was doing before.
Hmm.
So that's, so the minds games are, to me was like one of the hardest things, getting past that, going, this is only temporary, got to push through it, little by little. So it's been, that's to me has been probably the hardest part, was the frustration and getting past knowing that you've done more, like a tremendous amount more, and you having to kind of like restart and do the whole thing. Like, oh, that work that you did is just gone and you have to redo it now. But you just buckle down and start redoing it.
Do you feel like you are there already, or you think that you still have to improve just to be the level that you were before?
I got a long ways to go still. I'm getting there. I am. I'm really, don't get me wrong. I'm patting myself on the back on these things because you have to enjoy this, this small victories.
Hmm.
But I'm really happy with the progress that I've made and how I'm making it, and being able to consistently do what I'm doing, as well as compete and get ready for major competitions, and still holding everything together. So I'm happy with it. It's going better and better. So
Nice, very cool. During this time, the only thing that you probably had control was your diet, right? So during those 7 months, how did you control the diet, or you just let it go and ate everything? Because I'm assuming that you try to at least stay in a good shape.
yeah, that was the goal. Yes. And I have to completely admit that it didn't go that way at all. Uh, Not at all. It was, I lost my bearing on that one, and I literally just ate whatever I wanted. Was in that. I mean, for 4 months, I think I couldn't do anything, but even like I couldn't even walk more than 20 minutes. So everything that I had used to relieve my stress and the shit in my head, that was through jujitsu, that was through lifting, releasing that anger.
Hmm.
And when I don't have release, I got to bottle it up. And when I bottle it up, it just ferments, into depression. And so that was, you know, no boo hoo. I'm not, but it just, that's what I was. I mean, I had no release for months.
Right.
And
So
that
you
was,
gain weight.
so I just fucked up some food. I mean, I just tore it up. I mean, like tortas every day. And I mean, I'm telling you, I just tore it up every day.
Wow. So how much weight did you gain when you came back?
About 40 pounds.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I feared no food. I went to town.
And once you get back, I mean, did you lose this like immediately? Because that's another thing, right? After 40s, I feel like our metabolism is not the same. So to lose weight is hard. At least to me, it's way harder than it was 6 years, 7 years ago.
Sure. Oh, it definitely took a lot more, but also, the one thing I have going for me as I got older was my discipline was getting better. So once I was actually able to even just start doing mobility work, and just getting into doing some uchikomi, that was a huge relief for me. And that kind of like allowed me to be able to, okay, I can take a breather now, I have some relief going. Okay, now I need to focus on my discipline, on my eating. And I just started cleaning up my diet some, just not overdoing it like I was. And it didn't take that long. I mean, definitely not like we were saying before. I mean, not like when I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
but it was consistent. And
You
and so
were
now,
doing more protein to cut during this time.
um, so it's I was taking in about, and I regularly take in about 180 grams protein a day. Just something where, what I've read is, the whole protein thing, 1 pound, 2 grams per pound,
Hmm.
or, um, I've actually, what I've been reading is, it's actually zero point 0.8, per kilo. And I started adopting that formula in my when I started changing up my diet, and it actually works better for me. So I started taking in less protein, and I was feeling better.
But did you increase to compensate? Did you increase the carbs or the fat?
Um, and it was more on more on the carbs on the side, yeah. But there was an increase on both, but more on the carbs.
And,
Um, and that was just initially so I could kind of like curve down,
mhm.
and then the carbs started going away. But that was kind of like my way of doing it. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to start today and cut everything out. It was a gradual, 4 or 5 months. And that's what made it a lot more tolerable too. So I started out with a lot more carbs, to make up for that. And then, the fats. And then as it started kind of going, it was the carbs that were going down, the fats were increasing, because I was working out more. So I needed more energy.
Yeah, because I think that you are under the IBJJF, you are on super heavy, so you didn't really have to cut weight any, right? You always were on the same weight that you compete for the most part, right?
Usually about 6 or 7 pounds over. That's usually where I hover at now. Um, I've been at that weight for probably about like 5, 6 years now, minus my little fatty extent after surgery. So,
So
um,
you say
but
5'6" without the gi, right?
what's that?
5 or 6 without the gi, because you probably have to cut 8 pounds because you have to wait with the gi, right?
Yeah. So usually, when it's time for me to compete, I got to drop about 10 pounds total, because I like to be 2 pounds just in case. So I add, 2 pounds under the weight, and then 2 pounds as a, um, just in case 2 pounds. So I usually walk around 237, 238, and I try to drop down to 218.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. And
so that
is that your weight right now?
no, no, no. My weight right now is about 232 this morning.
Okay. And is this gonna be the same weight you're gonna compete in Reno?
Yeah, I'm doing the 100 kilo.
So you don't need to lose anything.
No, I'll be dropping about 8 more pounds. But it's also easier there because it's the day before, so I can even do a lot of water weight and just regain that the night of,
Yeah.
and no gi requirement. So there's a lot more advantages to making weight in judo.
Yeah, you can even carb up on the night before. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, that's good. And how's the prep for this tournament?
it's going well. Um, I mean, definitely would like to make it more judo, but obligations, teaching jujitsu at the same time as the judo classes. So um, as it gets closer, I'm going to try to make it a little bit more. I might try to get someone to cover for me once a week or so I can get down there and actually train the evenings and add one more day. that'd be nice to do. But if not, then I just try to make it up with the lifting, and then maybe get some drills in with some of my students.
From the cardio perspective, since you know both sports, which one do you believe is more intense on cardio? Is Randori or Rose? I have hard time to answer that question myself.
I honestly think it just depends on your game, and also how you react to someone else's game. It's one of those things that you feel compelled to kind of match someone's speed if they're going fast, to at least to counter it. So you're going to have to speed up your game. My mentality is I like to push, 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 and try to catch them on a mistake. Try to force them out to the ring and force them back in, and try to catch them when they're coming back in. That's the mindset that I've always had, is just constantly, pushing the opponent, to the point where, the analogy I like to use is, a lot of people's game is like a revolver where they, fire and then reload, fire and reload. But if you have like big game, where you have, constantly attacking like a machine gun, just firing, attacks constantly, you might dodge 2 or 3 of them, but eventually you're going to get caught. And that's one of the big reasons why, you have to have, really good conditioning to have that type of game and that much.
Yeah, but the guys, and I think you are referring way more to Judo than BJJ when you're talking about that, right? Because on BJJ, you can slow down, can stall more, so you can hold more position, and then,
That depends on your opponent, though.
Well,
You try to hold them down, but the thing is, if your opponent is constantly trying to work out, you're going to have to work as well. I do agree with you. There are a lot of ways of kind of like pinning your opponent. But I definitely think they're different now, sport-wise. I definitely agree with you that jiu-jitsu is slower, way slower than judo. I mean, because in judo, if you're not pushing the action, then you're going to get penalized.
right.
So, and in jiu-jitsu, they're a lot more liberal with that call. You'll be in these, as long as you're moving an inch or two, that's still moving in their eyes. So they'll allow it. But in judo, if you're not attacking, or if you're not countering from an attack, if there's no movement, then they're quick to call a penalty.
Yeah, I've seen jiu-jitsu fights where the guy hold the other one in guard for like 4 minutes and only attack on the last last minute, and that's okay. You don't do that on judo.
Yeah. And so sport-wise, when in competition, I definitely think that judo is a lot more demanding.
Yeah, the advantage is when you go to a guy on your weight division, those guys are not really that fast, right? It's not like you are Randori with Alex, your student. She is super fast. But the guys on your division probably are not that fast.
Um, I'd like to say so, but I've met some really fast guys.
Heavyweights?
That comes to visit. I don't know if you've met him. That guy's ridiculously fast, and he's in 100 kilo.
Wow.
There was Niamocher's one of his teammates. He was fast. He just wasn't. I don't know, one on his A game, I guess. But I've met several that now majority. Yeah, I agree. I just don't know what to expect at this high level of judo. I've never competed at this level. So I honestly don't know if they're going to be fast or slow. Because, I mean, you go to Masters Worlds and, you go into the Masters 4 division and these guys are just ripped with 6-packs and, everyone's in shape, ready to go, And then you have, of course, a couple of frumpies, here and there. But for the most part, there's, when you get to that high level, these guys are athletes.
Yep.
They're getting ready for it. They're training. They're eating properly. They're athletes. They're competitive athletes, and so they do their due diligence to be in the best shape that they can. And you see that at the high levels. And so that's what I'm gearing my mindset for, is the the best shape opponent that I can imagine.
And as you said, you really have to take care of your game. You should not really be too concerned about what the other guy is gonna do. I mean, you do your homework, and as long as you do your part, you should be fine.
As long so I always do is I do a lot of homework is to make sure that be aware of what they like to do, because everyone has their favorites and their strategy, and so in order not to get sucked into theirs, that's where I do a lot of the homework, is to make sure I know that um, that they have like they try to surprise you with left side attack instead of a right. When they're a righty, they'll switch stance, or they're seonagi heavy, they love doing the drop
Yep.
seonagi or something. So in order to make sure it doesn't catch you off guard, because I mean, let's face it, the surprise aspect in judo is one of the top three components necessary for a win, is the surprise aspect, the strategy, the proper kazushi with followed by the technique.
Hmm.
So those three things are the each in their own respect the most important.
Is Reno gonna be your first national level judo competition, or you've done other one?
Yep. Nope. First one.
Interesting.
Yep.
And
So
that is in May, right?
one.
That is gonna be in May, right?
Yes. May 15th through the 17th.
Because I remember you told me that you did last year. You did one, but it was local. I think it was the Lone Star, right?
So the one I did the year before was Houston. Yeah. So I did the President's Cup. I did Houston, and I did. There's one other one.
I think it was Lone Star, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It probably was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I think you got your professor on the finals, something like that.
Yeah. That was it was weird, because I guess so in jiu-jitsu, it's you bow out to your coach.
Yep.
That's just what you do.
Hmm.
And so I did the exact same thing, and apparently in judo, it's looked at as like disrespectful. I was like, oh shit, no, that's not what. So I didn't know this until after. I was just doing what I thought was right, and bowing out to my coach, because he taught me. No, but parents looked at it as, if you don't fight them, then it's disrespectful.
Oh,
But
I didn't know that either. That's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, as you said, in jiu-jitsu, if both teams gets in the finals, they just split the first place.
Yeah, or that's fine. Yeah, but that referee was, when I was walking off, he was saying that, so I was like, oh, I didn't know. So be it. But yeah, splitting it or even bowing out. There's guys that I have been friends with for a long time, and we compete in the same weight division. If we cross paths, I'll bow out or they'll bow out. And I mean, it's no loss. It's the same thing with people that I'm friends with. So
Yeah, I think is a really sign of respect. I like that actually. All right, Alan. Let me just finish here. I think I have one more question here. At the beginning of the podcast, you said that you started weightlifting to develop strength and explosion to actually utilize on BJJ. And and now that you are not competing on weightlifting, there are any specific exercises that you like to do more that you can utilize in BJJ and judo? Like, do you prioritize like things like deadlift, squats? There are some core exercise that you always gonna do because you think it's beneficial for BJJ or judo.
So the three key lifts that I could suggest: squats, and I mean all ranges of squats: wide squats, narrow squats, weighted squats, banded squats, chain squats, box squats, front squats, back squats, all of them. And you can alternate between them. Deadlifts, wide stance, narrow stance, both hands over, both hands under, alternating grips, deficit deadlifts,
trap bar.
Trap bar, all variations of them, absolutely deadlifts. And if you can get the technique down first, and I'm emphasizing that if you can get the technique down, cleans to me are probably one of the most beneficial lifts that you can incorporate along with like snatch. So you can do snatch pulls and to imitate that same movement with a wide grip, and then full cleans. Could definitely get a lot more weight and do full cleans and carry it instead of dropping it for the pulls.
I have hard time doing those because I have tennis elbow on both of my elbows, and it kind of hurt. So I try to avoid those movements. It's just not good on my elbows for some reason.
Then I would stick to definitely the squats and deadlifts.
Yeah.
The variation of that, it's a lot more controlled.
Now on this squat, are you in favor of 45 degrees or ass to the grass?
Ass to grass every time.
Really?
Full range of, yes. Because you have to think about this as well, and it also depends on what you're doing. If you're doing it for aesthetic purposes only, there might be some rationale there because you're not going heavy in weight. You're really emphasizing on your movement and developing that key, contraction, for the most beneficial growth of the muscle. As an athlete, what you're concerned about is that explosive, repetitive motion, for strength, that strength development. So that range of motion that you have, if you're going ass to grass, you need to develop your strength from ass to grass, because you're going to find yourself with your heel to your butt in movement of, a lot of different positions, especially in jiu-jitsu. So you don't want to develop that strength from 45 up. You want to develop that strength from, the most collapsed position that your leg can go, which is where you go ass to grass. And the same thing if someone is, for example, side mount, or you go knee on belly and someone's trying to reverse, and they grab underneath and they're pulling and collapsing that leg. And that's how they're actually getting the whole sweep, is by collapsing that. So if you can develop that strength, that's only more beneficial. You can break positions like that.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. I never thought about the benefit of that for BJJ, because for many years I've done more for the bodybuilding perspective, where you want to develop the muscle and, as you said, contraction and really work more on the aesthetic side. But I fully agree, to carry on the strength and the explosion to jiu-jitsu, as to grass makes more sense. It's just really tough for someone with the bad knees to do ass to grass sometimes.
Yeah, and it takes time as well. I mean, you got to develop the mobility in your hips to actually do so, and in your back. The one key thing that I do every day actually is the reverse hyper, and that's for your lower back. That's been a key component, but it's not a very common tool that people have in their gym.
Yeah, it's hard to find that one. It's really hard to find. Yeah, they have one at Hidden Gym, which is in Allen, and at Destination in Allen as well. So when I go there, I always try to use that machine. All right, my friend, great conversation. Thanks a lot for your time. Time went by really fast. We've been talking for almost like 1 hour. So I truly appreciate great insights. I'm looking forward to get back to the mat next week. And hopefully we do some Gucci combats together.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.